I am a Chicago Bulls fan, if you were not aware of that, by the Chicago Zach LaVine jersey and the Chicago Lonzo Ball jersey. But yes, I am a very big fan of the Chicago Bulls, and this team this year has been the most enjoyable season for me my entire time as a Bulls fan, for my entire lifetime. Now, for those who may not be aware of this context, I didn't start watching basketball until 2012. I played basketball all day, every day since I was like 9, but watching, didn't really do that until I was 12. And do I address the old joke or do I let it fucking go? I'm 22 years old as of 2 days ago, so happy birthday to me. But this has been a fucking disaster of an intro. What's my point? Basically, the Bulls have not been good other than 1 year outside of this one for my entire time as a fan. So I feel a lot of pride and a lot of enjoyment and a lot of happiness. Just the Bulls in general have been a big bright spot in my life because I'm that invested in sports that I consider my basketball team a huge part of my overall well-being. So when I say the Chicago Bulls are making me happy this year and I'm really happy with them and I really can't have too many complaints, I absolutely mean that shit. That being said, I had aspirations larger than this because of early on in the season, and I feel like I'm coming back down to earth on them. And at this point, I'm worried, but not really, about the Chicago Bulls. It's a weird, kind of paradoxical thing to explain. Because on one hand, they've exceeded my expectations, and on another, because they've exceeded those expectations, that's created more expectations that they haven't necessarily exceeded since then. So I want to talk about the Bulls. Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already and drop a like on this video. I am trying to hit 100k subscribers on this channel by the end of the playoffs, so your subscription would be much appreciated. Also drop a like, only takes 1 second and it makes a huge difference in how the video performs. Also go check out my podcast if you have not already. I believe on the schedule, let me check real quick. Okay, no, I was way off. I thought it was scheduled to happen today. No, when this video is being released, I have a live, we're having a live podcast on Friday of this week. So Friday the 11th, go check that out. There's going to be multiple guests. It's going to be in person in Atlanta. And if you haven't been watching the podcast in general, go subscribe to that channel. We're doing live podcasts 2 times a week, mostly basketball stuff, but also personal life stuff or just talking about general news. But yeah, go check that shit out. It's very it's a good time. We had a really good episode yesterday at the time of recording this, and I'm pretty hyped for the future of that podcast. But anyways, the Chicago Bulls. So what do I mean by my expectations were broken and then they've gone higher? So basically, DeMar DeRozan is the biggest facet in this because when the Bulls signed DeMar DeRozan, my original thinking was, wow, what a great third option, or what a great second option. And I specifically said in my video reacting to that move, I wonder who the Bulls' second option will be. Because obviously Zach LaVine's number 1. And then at that point, is DeMar going to shoot the ball more, or is Vucevic going to shoot the ball more? Is DeMar going to act as more of a playmaker? Is Vucevic going to act more as a floor spacer? Wasn't quite sure. Didn't work out that way. DeMar is like an actual like MVP candidate. Don't think he's going to win it by any means, but nor do I think he should. But in the conversation, I guess if we're talking like the 6th spot or 5th spot maybe. But either way, my point is DeMar DeRozan is way better than I thought. Way better than I thought he would be, and because of that, the Bulls have been way better than I thought he would be. But that was kind of counterbalanced by the fact that Nikola Vucevic has been significantly worse than I expected. So overall, the Bulls were more good than I expected them to be, because even though I thought Lonzo and Alex Caruso were great signings, both of them were even better than I expected, especially Alex Caruso. I would assume it was a 2nd-round pick. Huge surprise, way better than expected. Able to get a lot of production out of someone like Javonte Green, who was previously expected to not even be in the rotation. So to that end, the Chicago Bulls have had a lot of breakout players and ended up being a much better roster than I originally anticipated. If you would have asked me early on going into the season, I would have said the Chicago Bulls are like a 5 seed and they maybe make it to the second round. But if not, I'm chill because I'm just happy to have a basketball team that is not the laughing stock of the NBA. That matters quite a bit to me. So that's what I mean by my expectations were exceeded, because it went from this will be a middle of the pack team in the Eastern Conference to maybe they can be a contender. And the Bulls early on in the season, after kind of struggling versus some bad teams the first couple of games, although I believe they started off like 8-0 or something like that. Either way, despite that, the conversation quickly became, are the Chicago Bulls contenders? And I was initially hesitant. And then eventually I came over to, yeah. And that was in part because of the situation around the league at large. There were so many teams that were in this conversation for contender, and the, tier levels between them did not feel wholly different. It didn't feel drastic. Didn't feel like there was a drastic and significant difference between the best team in basketball and the 8th best team in basketball. And I was like, hey, the Bulls could be in that 8th spot, and there's not that huge of a difference, so why the fuck not? But that feeling of me actually getting in line with the notion of this team being a legit contender, as of late, that has dissipated. Now, I realize what a lot of Bulls fans are going to say in rebuttal to this, and I do believe there is some fairness in what they would say, and that is the health factor. The fact that Lonzo and Alex Caruso, other than like one game that Alex was able to play before that bitch-ass dude in Milwaukee just tore him out of the sky. What was I saying? Outside of that game, Alex Caruso hasn't played in a long time, since like December, and Lonzo Ball has not played since December, and that has been a huge factor. Not to mention that Zach LaVine has been in and out of the lineup, Nikola Vucevic has been in and out of the lineup. Really, the only consistent thing has been DeMar DeRozan. They've had even guys like Derrick Jones Jr. miss a significant amount of time, and I think that's a bigger deal than you might expect. Javonte Green, same thing. All fair, but I have seen this team lose games that they had no business losing, Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball aside. Well, I believe those two coming back makes the team noteworthy better, like definitely a lot better. I don't think their return brings the Bulls from what I've seen them be, which is a middle-ish playoff team, to a contender. I don't think those two coming back is really putting them in that tier and meeting that threshold like I would like. I realize the Bulls did go on did it get 7? I can't remember if it was just 6 or if it made it to 7. Let's just say 6-game win streak without Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball, and Zach LaVine missed like 2 games during that win streak. But that was just because DeMar DeRozan decided to break a Wilt Chamberlain record. Not something I want to bank on, especially in the playoffs. So I don't think that was a factor of how good the team was. I think DeRozan just carried for a couple of games. But when I'm looking at what the Bulls are in general, I just feel like there are so many teams that are better. And there were some like Vegas odds thing that came out the other day of like championship odds, what people were betting on them to win a championship. The Bulls were like 13 with like 2%. And I feel like that's the Bulls. There are not 12 teams with better championship odds than the Bulls. But all things considered, my expectation going from middle of the pack, pretty good, yeah, maybe high seed in this case, playoff team, went from that to contender, and it's kind of back to what it originally was. So yeah, I just don't. I don't even know what the concern is the right way to put it, because again, I'm overall happy with the season. If we lost in the second round, hell, if we lost in the first round where we put up a really good fight and we just had like an unfavorable matchup, I'm walking away happy with that too. Just because relative to what I was used to, I'm happy with that. But there was a time where I had these expectations of contention, and I just don't really see it anymore. Of course, when it comes to takes, I generally don't care about being wrong. Really don't care if I'm wrong about this one. In fact, I do care that I'm wrong. I pray to God that I'm wrong, because that means the Chicago Bulls, at the very least, are like a finals team. So yeah, I'd love to be wrong about this. But in general, I feel like the contender talks with the Bulls are kind of done, at least for me, until proven otherwise. The Bulls were really, really good with Alex Caruso and Lonzo healthy, but I don't even know that they were fully contender level. And with some of the slippage I see with the team as the season goes along, it seems more and more obvious that just not quite in that tier. Not to mention Zach LaVine has a knee injury that he's not going to be able to get fixed until the offseason. And he says he's pretty much going to be 80% of himself until that surgery. So, yeah, is what it is. I'm sure the Bulls will retool in the offseason. Maybe Vucevic is gone. Maybe AD to Chicago. My memory card is blank, so I'm going to be talking over a black screen for the rest of this. Some of that stuff is kind of extreme, but you know what I mean. The Bulls could do some stuff and still be a contender next year, but I just don't quite see it with them this year. But overall, I'm not complaining too much because I'm just happy that my team is good. But yeah, that was my thoughts on the Chicago Bulls at this point, and that is it. Goodbye.